Greetings, my dear viewer. This is a channel about marital infidelity and about the consequences if one spouse starts to cheat on the other. If you, as well as I do, support true family values and condemn cheating, then subscribe to the channel and give this video a like. Let's get started. Never in my worst nightmares did I imagine my life unraveling like this. Every choice I made led me down a path I now desperately wish I could escape. At 48, a dedicated wife and mother of 3, I should have known better. How could I deceive myself into thinking my betrayal wouldn't shatter everything? Yet, here I stand amidst the wreckage. I was unfaithful, and my husband discovered the truth. The devastation I caused him was profound, but his reaction surpassed anything I could have foreseen. My name is Zoe Anderson. Nathan and I married shortly after college, and together we built a life filled with love and family. Our youngest, Michael, is in his second year at Florida State University. His older brother, Jeremy, graduated from Duke with a degree in computer science and secured a job in a thriving software company in California. Our daughter, Linda, married last year and settled in New York, where her husband found success on Wall Street. Meanwhile, Nathan and I remained in Atlanta, adjusting to an empty home that once echoed with our children's laughter. Perhaps loneliness played a part in my downfall. Maybe it was a midlife crisis creeping in. Regardless of the reasons, I made an unforgivable mistake and let it consume me. Nathan had always been an incredible husband and a devoted father. Our marriage was solid, our bond never lacking in affection or intimacy. He was patient, kind, and never once gave me cause to doubt his loyalty. I loved him completely. Nathan built a successful computer service company that provided technical support to major corporations across Atlanta. His job demanded frequent travel, but he made every effort to include me when he could. That changed when I took a job at the library. Suddenly, I could no longer accompany him. For most of my life, I saw myself as unremarkable, until Nathan made me feel extraordinary. He showered me with love and admiration, making me believe I was special. I had gained 15 pounds since college, a change I resented, though Nathan always reassured me that I was beautiful. He even insisted he preferred my figure over the lean, model-like women's society idealized. Meanwhile, he remained fit. At 5'10", he maintained his physique with consistent gym sessions and yard work. He was undeniably handsome, drawing attention from women our age, and sometimes younger ones. When I found his latest physical report, I discovered he now weighed a pound less than he had in college. Despite my insecurities, his love for me never wavered. His smile never faded when he looked at me. Now, as I reflect on my choices, I fail to comprehend what possessed me to stray. Was it the rush of being desired by someone new? The thrill of forbidden temptation? I convinced myself I would never get caught, that it was fleeting, meaningless. Yet deep inside, I couldn't silence the self-doubt. Every glance in the mirror reminded me of the weight I struggled to lose. Nathan never voiced a complaint, but my confidence eroded nonetheless. I cycled through endless diets, briefly shedding pounds only to gain them back. Still, I wasn't completely dissatisfied with my appearance. My face remained free of wrinkles, my hair, regularly colored, hid any grays, and despite having 3 children, my stomach remained flat. Nathan and I had been together since high school. He had dated Natalie Holland before me, a strikingly beautiful girl with cascading blonde hair and a statuesque frame. She exuded confidence, the kind of woman who turned heads the moment she entered a room. I knew little about her back then, only that their breakup had been dramatic. Nathan admitted she was exciting but too volatile. Their final fight erupted when she insisted he skip an important school project to join her on a ski trip. When she went without him, she shared a room with her ex-boyfriend. Whether or not she was unfaithful, Nathan refused to tolerate the betrayal and ended things. Even after we began dating, Natalie clung to him. She appeared at the same restaurants, the same events, her desperation evident. I loathed her, and she loathed me. Nathan, ever patient, reassured me that I was incomparable to her. Yet deep down, I feared he might one day change his mind. Her persistence continued even beyond our wedding. Nathan's frustration boiled over when he finally told her, in no uncertain terms, to leave us alone. A year into our marriage, I saw an announcement in the newspaper. Natalie had married a wealthy man from an influential Atlanta family. Their extravagant wedding was splashed across the society pages. From that day forward, she vanished from our lives. Oddly, her departure brought me unexpected security in my marriage. Then Michael left for his sophomore year, and an unsettling emptiness settled over me. Nathan was away on a business trip, just a 2-day venture packed with meetings. His company was expanding rapidly, leaving him exhausted and overwhelmed. I felt adrift. One morning, while reading the newspaper, I came across an ad seeking volunteers for the local library. As an English major and lifelong book lover, libraries had always been my refuge. Some of my fondest memories were of bringing my children there, packing lunches, and spending hours lost in stories. Encouraging their love of reading had contributed to their academic achievements. Stepping into the library again filled me with apprehension. I hadn't worked in years, and self-doubt gnawed at me. But I soon realized the head librarian, Emily Broom, was a familiar face from my past visits. She welcomed me warmly and assigned me to assist Anthony Wilson, a 24-year-old doctoral student studying library science. I regret ever meeting him. Anthony bore a passing resemblance to Nathan in his younger days. Not as striking, but he possessed a boyish charm, impeccable manners, and a gentle smile. He carried extra weight and lacked Nathan's defined physique, but something about him was disarming. He treated me as if I were the most important person in the world. Nathan had been thrilled about my new role, encouraging me without hesitation. I gravitated toward Anthony, drawn to his enthusiasm, unlike the other student volunteers who viewed the work as a mere obligation. He sensed my struggles with an empty home and often offered kind words of understanding. His compliments became a crutch. I eagerly accepted extra shifts, looking forward to his company. Everything shifted when the library staff was struck by a flu outbreak, leaving me working late nights. In those quiet hours, boundaries blurred. It started as innocent teasing, playful banter. Then, one evening, while clearing out a storage room, Anthony kissed me. Shock paralyzed me, yet an unexpected thrill coursed through my veins. I didn't move. And then, he kissed me again. This time, I responded. For those fleeting moments, I allowed myself to be lost in the rush, surrendering to the reckless intoxication of the forbidden, until reality returned, forcing us apart. I wish I could undo it all, but I can't. A storm of emotions consumed me, an intoxicating mix of excitement and shame. As our late shifts stretched on, stolen moments in the locker room became a dangerous habit. What started as innocent touches and whispered confessions soon escalated into something far more reckless. One night, as the tension between us boiled over, he unbuttoned my blouse, slid my bra away, and left me trembling in the grip of desire and guilt. Days later, his hands grew bolder, slipping beneath my skirt, brushing against my skin in ways that made my heart pound. It was exhilarating. It was forbidden. And I wanted more. But there was nowhere for us to go. His shared apartment made privacy impossible. Then, an audacious thought took root. In a week, my husband Nathan would leave on a business trip. The idea of inviting Anthony into my home seemed unthinkable, yet the temptation proved stronger than my conscience. That reckless choice changed everything. When the night arrived, I led Anthony into the guest room. The bed I shared with Nathan felt sacred, and using another room somehow lessened my guilt. At least, that's what I told myself. Looking back, I see the absurdity of that justification, how I sacrificed everything for a fleeting rush. Our first time together was not the passionate encounter I had envisioned. Anthony was inexperienced, and my nerves made everything feel awkward. The only prudent decision I made that night was insisting he use protection. I had long assumed my chances of pregnancy were over, but I wasn't willing to risk it. Nathan had undergone a vasectomy after our son Michael was born. Though the experience itself was clumsy, there was an undeniable thrill in our betrayal. Once it was over, Anthony dressed quickly and left, but something had changed within me. When Nathan returned from his trip, an unfamiliar hunger surged inside me. The encounter with Anthony had stirred something dormant, and the moment Nathan walked through the door, I threw myself at him. He responded with warmth, his love as steady as ever, oblivious to the darkness I had invited into our lives. I loved Nathan, deeply, truly. Yet I had betrayed him. My mind twisted reality to justify my actions, convincing me that the affair had reignited my devotion to my husband. It was a lie I desperately clung to. For the next 3 months, whenever Nathan traveled, I invited Anthony back. We indulged in our secret trysts every night of his absence, except the last, always cautious of Nathan's possible early return. I now realize my attraction to Anthony had little to do with him. It was the secrecy, the danger, the thrill of stepping over the line. I had used him selfishly, not out of love, but as a means to feed an insatiable craving. And yet, every time Nathan came home, my passion for him felt stronger, as if my transgression had reignited something between us. But everything fell apart on a quiet Tuesday afternoon. Nathan was supposed to be away until Wednesday, and I had already decided this would be the last time. The excitement had faded, and the weight of guilt was suffocating. That afternoon, I led Anthony into the guest room one final time. Afterward, as we lay side by side, I found my voice, steady but resolute. "Anthony, this has to end. I can't keep doing this." His expression crumpled. "Why?" he asked, his voice a mere whisper. Tears shimmered in his eyes. "I love you," he confessed, and the words sent a shiver through me. He meant them, but I knew the truth. "No, Anthony," I said gently, cupping his face in my hands. "This isn't love, it's infatuation. I'm old enough to be your mother. Sooner or later you'll move on, and I wouldn't blame you. It's best we stop now." He wanted to argue, but I pressed a finger to his lips. "Please," I murmured. "Let's get dressed and say goodbye. I hope we can still be friends." He sat there in stunned silence, his desire still apparent. But I had made my decision. And then, the nightmare unfolded. A knock at the door. The handle turned. Nathan stood in the doorway, his face a mask of agony. "Zoe," he said, his voice hollow, his eyes brimming with devastation. "When you're finished, we need to talk." Panic seized me. The words that tumbled from my lips were absurd in their desperation. "Nathan, this isn't what it looks like." Anthony paled. Scrambling for his clothes, he bolted, barely managing to pull his pants up as he fled through the front door. I remained, frozen in disgrace. Slowly, I gathered myself and walked to where Nathan sat at the dining table. His face betrayed no emotion, but his reddened eyes spoke volumes. I had broken him. Then I saw them. Scattered across the table were photographs, images of Anthony and me, taken from above. A horrifying realization struck me. Months ago, Nathan had worked on the guest room's overhead lights. That must have been when he installed a camera. My voice shattered as I sobbed. "Nathan, please, I love you more than anything." His reply was ice. "You have a funny way of showing it." The pain in his voice cut deeper than I thought possible. "Why?" he finally asked, his gaze unwavering. I struggled to find an answer. Why had I done this? I had never truly examined my reasons until that moment. And then, with sickening clarity, I understood. I was just another aging woman chasing an illusion, desperate to prove I was still desirable. A midlife crisis, a pathetic, reckless impulse. Nathan's voice trembled with sorrow. "Why, Zoe, after all these years?" Tears blurred my vision. I don't have a good answer, I admitted. After the kids left, I felt empty. I guess I wanted to feel wanted again, to bring excitement back into my life. But it was never about love. I have always loved you. Can you ever forgive me? I broke down completely. Nathan watched, his own tears slipping silently down his face. The man I loved more than life itself was shattered, and I didn't know if he could ever look at me the same way again. Do you have any idea how angry I was when I found out? He finally asked, his voice disturbingly calm. I shook my head, dreading his answer. So angry, he confessed, that I seriously considered killing both you and your lover. A wave of terror gripped me. My breath hitched. I installed the cameras out of suspicion, he continued, his tone eerily controlled. But I never watched the footage. I forgot about them. Before this trip, I remembered and decided to check. Downloaded everything onto a flash drive, expecting to find nothing. He let out a bitter laugh. I was such a fool. Nathan, please, I choked out, but he ignored me. I watched the videos on the plane, he admitted. I was so furious I nearly ripped the armrest off my seat. I wanted to turn back right then, but I had a meeting I couldn't skip. He exhaled sharply, his body trembling. For a moment, I thought he might collapse. I threw myself into work, 16-hour days, just to keep from losing my mind, he continued. And when I was alone in that hotel room, I had to ask myself, what the hell am I going to do with you? Tears streamed down my face. I already knew what was coming next. Zoe, he said, his voice raw with agony, the most important question I have for you is, did you love him? No, I nearly screamed. Absolutely not. His gaze darkened. Then what the hell did he mean to you? He had been nothing more than a friend who had shown me kindness, I whispered, my voice barely audible. At the time, I had been drowning in despair, convinced that I was unworthy of love. Nathan's face shifted, his expression tightening as if my words had struck a nerve. Are you implying that I treated you poorly? He asked. No, not at all, I hurried to clarify, my voice edged with distress. You've always been attentive, always caring. This was never about you mistreating me. It was my own weakness, my own foolishness. I let my insecurities consume me. I acted recklessly, selfishly. You were buried in work, preoccupied with your responsibilities. The trips we used to take, the conversations we once shared about your business, all of it faded. I felt like I was disappearing while you surged forward, and I was terrified you were growing tired of me. Nathan, please. I'm so sorry. I just wanted to feel needed again. It was a desperate, senseless mistake. I was a fool. Nathan's complexion paled as he turned toward the window, his silence suffocating. Moments passed before he finally faced me again, sorrow etched into every feature. My stomach churned at the sight. I need time, he said, pushing back his chair and rising to his feet. I have to figure out if I can still be married to you. My chest constricted. Where are you going? I asked, my voice thick with desperation. The lake house. When will you be back? I dreaded the answer before he even spoke. When I know what I want to do. Without another word, he strode to the door and left, shutting it firmly behind him. The days that followed were nothing short of torture. The uncertainty of whether Nathan, my husband, my heart, would ever return was unbearable. I sought distraction wherever I could, first by resigning from my volunteer work at the library, then by immersing myself in a deep, relentless cleaning spree. Every room, every neglected corner of the house became my fixation. The attic and basement, long untouched, were methodically purged, years of forgotten belongings discarded in box after box at the curb. On the third day, I left to buy groceries. When I returned, my breath hitched. Nathan's car was in the driveway. A flicker of hope ignited, only to be swiftly extinguished by a flood of dread. Was he here to end things? My hands trembled as I sat in the car, unwilling to face what awaited me inside. Finally, I forced myself to move, carrying the groceries into the kitchen. My heart plummeted at the sight before me. Nathan sat at the dining table, scattered before him the undeniable evidence of my betrayal. My vision blurred with tears. This was it. The end. Tentatively, I took a seat, bracing for the words that would shatter my world. Nathan exhaled heavily, lifting his gaze to meet mine. "There are things I still don't understand," he admitted. "I was certain I would divorce you. But then I thought about our children, what this would do to them. And I realized I've been so absorbed in work that I neglected our marriage. But that doesn't justify what you did." I opened my mouth to speak, to tell him how deeply I regretted everything, but he raised a hand, silencing me. "You should have come to me. You should have told me how you felt," he said, his voice breaking as tears streamed down his face. "We could have fixed this together. But instead, you chose to betray me." I couldn't hold back my own sobs any longer. The pain in his eyes was unbearable. "You felt invisible, so you turned to another man for validation," he said, his tone hollow. "It made you feel young, alive. Was it worth it?" He shook his head, his gaze distant. "You claim he meant nothing, that I am the only one you love. But this pain, it feels like death." His stare drifted to the window before returning to me, now cold, unreadable. Betrayal like this breaks a person. And while both men and women suffer from it, I think it's different for a man. A mother never questions her bond with her children. But a father must trust blindly that they are his. My pulse pounded. "Nathan, I understand why you feel this way. But if you're going to have the children take a DNA test, please don't tell them why. It would destroy them. And me." His jaw clenched. "Do you really think I would hurt them? No matter what the results say, they are mine. I'll tell them it's for genealogical research, but don't mistake my restraint for forgiveness." A crushing weight of shame bore down on me. "Once you have the results, will you still leave me?" His gaze swept over the room, lost in thought. "I was ready to file for divorce," he admitted. "But now, I don't know." A suffocating silence stretched between us before he finally spoke again, his voice quieter but resolute. "You sought excitement, a thrill. Shouldn't I be entitled to the same? Shouldn't I know what it feels like to be wanted?" A sharp knot twisted in my stomach. "What are you saying? You had a lover for 3 months. I think it's only fair that I have the same opportunity." "No!" I cried, shaking my head. "That's not the answer. Then there's no salvaging this marriage." He reached into his briefcase and slid divorce papers across the table. "We'll divide everything fairly, except for my business. You can keep the house, or we sell it and split the profit. If you refuse, I'll take this to court, and I won't hesitate to show these pictures." My vision blurred with tears. "I don't want a divorce," I whispered. "You can have your affair." He leaned in, his eyes unreadable. "I've done the math. You were with him at least 15 times. I'll match that, and 5 more, for the lies. 20 times. That's my price for staying." Agony and shame crashed over me, but I had no choice. With trembling hands, I signed the agreement he placed before me. "How will this work?" I asked weakly. "She'll come here," Nathan said. "The same guest room you used. Feel free to take pictures." I recoiled. "No, I don't want to see it." He shrugged. "I already found someone. Natalie Holland, now Natalie Smythe. Newly divorced. More than willing." A gasp escaped me. Not her. Anyone but her. Nathan's gaze was unyielding. "I didn't pick your lover. You don't get to pick mine." Despair overwhelmed me. I had no ground to stand on. A week later, Nathan informed me that Natalie would arrive that evening. I couldn't bear to witness it. I fled the house, only to cross paths with her on the way in. She was even more stunning than I remembered. As she passed, she smirked, radiating victory. The sight felt like a blade to my heart. And there were 19 more nights to endure. When it ended, I could only hope Nathan would still choose me. But for now, I was trapped in the torment of my own making. My friend, and this is the end of the story. If you liked this story, then put your royal like and subscribe to the channel. May the force be with you.